What does it mean to be a man? There are so many ideals about how men are supposed to behave and what men are supposed to be doing today. But what we're finding is that it's not really working out for a lot of men in modern day society. Today, we're going to look at a Vice video where a bunch of men are on a panel from different walks of life, and I'm going to take a snippet of that Vice interview and we're going to discuss it today. The link to the full video will be down in the description below. And with that being said, let's get started.
But I think dating and sex is probably a very interesting place to think about this because it's a changing field as far as like what people expect of each other.
I date in New York City a lot, and dating wise, there's a lot that's like asked of a man. Like first dates are like nightmares.
I got a question on that, yeah.
Dude, it's like, I'm like, what do you want? They got like a checkbox, like, are you gonna pick me up? Are you gonna walk on the outside of the sidewalk? Are you gonna open the door? Are you gonna pull out the seat? Are you gonna pay for the meal? Are you gonna be interesting during the dinner? Are you gonna be funny during the dinner? And then when you walk home, are you gonna drop me off? Are you gonna watch me walk inside? And then are you gonna text me after? And it's like trying to defuse a bomb. Like if you think you're like red wire, blue wire, and you're like one little thing and you're just done. And it's like, I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm so tired of like paying $150 for a first date and then you just ghost me. And the next week I'm like hurting for cash. I'm like, I could have really used that $150. Like, why did I have to, you know what I'm saying? Like the trade-off of...
This guy brings up a good point, but something that I hope you noticed, and rewind if you didn't pay attention to it, but the non-binary man that is sitting in the far left basically throughout this interview took this stance as if they were the woman on the panel. Pretty much like a pro-feminist type situation. Everything that everybody said, it was almost like they were pushing the feminist agenda onto this panel, which again makes this a very interesting conversation. But let's get back to the dude from New York. How many of you guys feel this? Feel what he's talking about on the panel? He's talking about doing all this stuff, which in my opinion, I feel like a lot of that stuff I do naturally. I think men should do naturally. But I grew up as a Southern gentleman. There's still things I do, like open doors and stand on the outside of any woman I'm walking with. These are things that I was just raised to do. This was the way that I was raised to think. Whether that's wrong or right, but that's just the way I came up. That is something that is instilled and ingrained in me, that that's what men do, because we are protectors. I want to get back to what dude from New York said. Dude from New York straight up said that you have all these requirements. And the thing that I want to highlight is he talked about, paying $150 for a date only to get ghosted. And then women's retort to that, modern women retort to his situation is, you need to make more money. But think about it. If he went on 10 dates in a month and every one of them cost $150, that's $1,500. For a date that essentially went nowhere. It's a waste of his time, and time is money. A lot of men feel disillusioned in this situation. A lot of men feel like, why am I going to put myself through that scenario in that situation only to just be losing money? So a lot of guys are just going their own way. But he said get ghosted, which means that these women didn't even take the time to say, hey, you're not what I'm looking for, this isn't going to work out, or hey, I had a great time, but I think I'm moving a different direction. I'm talking about completely ghosted. We know from a recent news report that about 33% of women only use men for foodie dates, to go out and get drinks, go out and get food, just to use a man for his resources. So what are men supposed to do? Is a man not supposed to be angry about that? I'm not saying that he needs to get in a nook at the end of the night. Isn't it wrong for a woman to use a man in this way? A lot of the times, the dudes that end up becoming players got their heart broken the worst sometimes.
Like going on a date and as the man being like, oh, this sucks, I have to pay, or as the woman being like, oh, this sucks, I might get murdered, is like a pretty big...
You see how it went from, oh, having to pay, but we have to worry about getting taken out, Control-Alt-Deleted? What does that have to do with anything? Just because a woman has to worry about danger, that should correlate to a man having to pay for her food, for him to get ghosted later? I mean, I really want you to think about that rationale. And it seemed like every point that person brought up was specifically in an eminence agenda. See, this has nothing to do with this man just told you my time and my resources are being used and squandered in a situation that I did not ask for. And you're going to relate it to dangers out in the street? So what's the argument here?
Imbalance.
On a first date, should the man, or whoever identifies as the man on the date, pick up the check? Show of hands, who thinks yes?
Now, before they get into this, I had a lot of you guys talk about who should pay in one of my videos. This is what happened when men stop simping. A lot of you guys said that whoever calls for the date should pay. And a lot of times women will not make any hint of wanting to go out with you on a date unless you're asking them out. That way you're on the hook for paying. I generally believe that a man should pay for that. But at the same time, I don't know what they about to say, but I will tell you, it doesn't mean a woman owes a man something in the night for paying for a date, but no woman should go out on a date with a man that she finds absolutely no interest in. And there's women that do that just to get that foodie call. Women need to stop ghosting good men and at least give them an explanation. And women don't care about that because they feel that you're a man and that's what you should do.
Okay, sorry. How would you put it?
I very much love gender roles. I like masculine men, and I want my masculine man to pick the check up.
This dude on the panel right here actually made some of the best points as far as what it is to be a man, even though he might identify as a gay dude or something like that. Some of the best points that came out of this Vice interview for me was from this dude.
My friends seem to be the same. My girlfriends seem to want that as well. But I have a male friend who was naturally doing that, and with the dates he was going on with women, they were offended that he took the check. So I think hey, if this woman doesn't want him to pay and she wants to show, she can pay, go off.
I totally agree and I disagree. Okay, with my last girlfriend, kind of the similar thing happened. I was always paying for the dates and she was like, look, let me pay. And this had nothing to do with her trying to show how strong she was. Partly what it was is that she wanted to do for me because I did for her. She wanted to show her appreciation for me. That may seem very rare today in modern dating, that a woman will feel like, you know what, this dude always, treats me like a lady. He's a total gentleman. He will take me on dates and he will pay for things, but I want to show him that I appreciate what he did for me. I had to get over my pride, so I totally get it.
It's a matter of preference. If someone picked it up for you, you develop a kind of rapport, respect with that person. So be it. If the other person,
right, that's what I was talking about.
The woman you're with doesn't want that, then maybe it's not the match for that person. So I think it's dependent on the situation.
I think that there's such a thing as financial abuse, and men seem a lot of time because they spend that a woman has to be under them or owes them something.
I think that's when you get toxic.
Me personally, I love to take care of my partner. Yeah. I love that feeling that I give them that they're taken care of when they're with me, and that's when it's with friends, anybody. If you're with me, I got you.
That dude that was just finished talking, he's the guy that grew up in the hood. There were times where he made some really good points, and he made it from a guy coming from the hood who is now in this world where, it's a little bit more socially accepted to be vulnerable, a little bit more. But at the same time, you can see that there are some points that he has bought into, and I think it's him just trying to learn how to navigate this world that we're in today. Now, I want to highlight something he said. He made a point to say about how he feels when he does for others around him, be it his friends or, whatever ladies in his life. A lot of men feel that it is ingrained in us to want to provide, to want to be able to do. And I think one of the things that's missing from modern women today is while we still feel and want to do those things that is inherent in us being men, you have a bunch of women who have lost that femininity and that nurturing spirit that makes them women. So if we're going to blur the lines between what it is to be a man and a woman, there has to be some give and take. If these women want to be more masculine and more in control, then why don't they feel like they want want to take care of and provide for a man. It's because in their programming, they don't love that. They don't respect that. You can't have men continually be traditional while women get to change and evolve and be modern.
Like, I guess what I'm hearing from you, Andre, is that there's like a lot of pressure to inhabit the masculine side of the social expectation, and yet you might not get the benefit that you would have expected generations ago. And that puts you in a weird position.
When you say the benefit of it, I don't necessarily think this dude is talking about taking girls home because I bought him dinner. I think he's saying, what happened to the kindness and the courtesy that I would get for doing this?
Yeah, well, we live in a city where there's 8 million people, and, a lot of these girls, especially if you're really attractive, guys are hitting on them all day. So they feel like celebrities. You got so many options. I don't blame you. I'd be the same way.
I think there's a point to that. If most men were able to garner attraction from women, how much would they actually value women if all they got was attention from women? And now with the advent of social media, women are getting more attention, more compliments, more looks, more adulation than they ever have. So now that's why you have women who would classify as a 2 or 3 or 4, thinking that they deserve men that are 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s. Just because of social media, would normally not get that attention on their own, other than men wanting to give them the D.
I think technology has a big part to do with that now. Like
Right.
modern times, like online dating, Instagram.
Especially as a girl, you're gonna have 30 DMs a day.
Yeah, the DMs.
You know what I'm saying? Swipe it up on your
I think
picture.
that's a big reason why it can be tougher for some men.
Not successful.
I think what he's saying is there's a toxicity to femininity as well. There is a toxic side to both genders.
Now, earlier they talked about toxic masculinity, and I told you guys earlier that it was the gay dude on the right in the front who actually stated the same principle that I've stated multiple times on this channel. If there is no toxic femininity, then there is no toxic masculinity. If anything, this word has been misappropriated by the feminist movement to be able to classify the behavior of a man, masculine traits that they don't like or doesn't fit their agenda, to be able to say that dude is toxic, to be able to shut down any type of discourse that could happen between a man and a woman in a particular situation. But what you never hear is people say toxic femininity. What the guy, the guy to the bottom right said that I agreed with, he said that he doesn't believe that there is toxic masculinity. He believes that they are bad people, they are toxic people, but he doesn't believe in this term. Nor do I, because masculinity in and of itself is not toxic, and femininity of itself is not toxic.
Well,
I think anybody can be narcissistic, but I think that it's like weird to randomly attribute that to like women in New York because they're being complimented all day.
You see how this person just got to jump in? That person up in the top left corner is pretty much spouting the whole women's playbook on shutting down any type of discourse.
The term is called absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, but that is, when we're talking about masculinity, that's what we've had. We've typically had that. We can do whatever we want, and we do it because we squeeze, we corrupt, we take. Historically, you take over things, places that you don't like, and you the women, and you take the gold, and you do what you want because you have that power. Now when we see women have that power, we're like, whoa, she's literally just getting a taste of the power that men have had for centuries.
Right now, there is very little that a man can do that a woman can't. And the women that choose not to do those things, it isn't because it isn't an opportunity for them. It's because they choose not to take the opportunity. Or they're in a position in which they can't do said thing for whatever reason or another. But the opportunity is there, especially if you're a black man or some type of minority group. You've never experienced that power. And matter of fact, this has nothing to do with even race. If you're just an average guy, you don't have access to be able to do these things. It is not available in modern society as maybe it was back in the day. With these modern day women, it is not about equality of outcome. It is literally about power.
But on the flip side of this perspective of dating, of like the poor guy who goes on these dates and gets ghosted and it's a struggle to date, on the other side of that is men have more sex, men cheat more, they have more affairs. So if I'm a woman and I'm looking for a guy, I would be really selective. I would have a list of what I was looking for, and the guy would have to meet those standards and they would be high.
That was probably the only take from that dude that I kind of disagree with. We're not saying that women shouldn't have higher standards. If anything, a lot of men agree that women should have higher standards. But when we talk about higher standards, we're not talking about unrealistic expectations. That's exactly what we're seeing from modern women today, these unrealistic expectations that men within their dating pool cannot meet. And the expectations are so high, you have, 80% of women going for the top 20% of men, and the top 20% of men having access to 80% of women. Well, yeah, when you have that much access, those men are taking advantage of it. Those men are able to sleep around. Those men are able to enjoy as many women as they want to. But these are the men that women continuously choose. And not because of the content of that man's character, but for the size of his wallet.
I think it's good for women to expose men who are doing evil things in the workplace. I think it's been a good thing in exposing sexual abuse. There's also the opposite side of that coin where women are allowed privilege to do certain things that men are not. In the workplace, I was working at a place where a woman was grabbing me inappropriately, doing things that were inappropriate. And when you bring that up to your coworkers, you know what they say? They laugh and they say, you should be excited, right? So if a man is sexually abused, the stigma totally changes.
Well, I don't think Me Too necessarily is what prevented people from believing you and your story. And your story is valid. I'm not here to suppress that, but I do think that it's worth noting women are far more likely to be victims of sexual assault.
You see how that person has been antagonizing this panel? It's a good perspective to bring up, but they never no one answers and no one comes back at that person and say, does that invalidate my perspective? Does that invalidate the fact that if I am a man and I'm in a workplace and I am getting assaulted by a woman, should not my claims be just as valid as the woman's claims if it has been founded? We have gone so far out of bounds right now where instead of being a land of innocent until proven guilty, what we do is we completely trash a man's life, completely ruin his future. And then when we find that maybe the woman lied on that man, his life is never the same. A lot of these dudes miss out. They never get back into whatever job field they were in. The stigma is set. There is a double standard that is going on when it comes to male abuse and female abuse. And all that dude was trying to say was, when it happened to me and I tried to tell my coworkers, they tell you, hey, you should like it. Is that not something that people just automatically assume because of the dude's gender, because he's a man? And these are some of the issues that men have to face and deal with.
Just experienced a little bit of weakness that women feel most of the time.
When we're talking about constructs, you guys are saying we need to deconstruct masculinity. I'm saying there are unequal biases with both genders.
How did you feel about today's video? What part of today's video resonated with you the most? I want to hear from you down in the comments, and I'll come down there and join you. Remember that the link to this video is down below. Make sure you check out the video at the end of this one. And until next time, live your best life.